I want to know what's going well, what's not, what could we do better? And then I want you to kind of reflect on, perhaps some of you have been in this school system since you were in kindergarten. Some of you entered after you finished up middle school, probably at charters, and then some of you have just moved in to this area. And so as you think about where this district has been, the reputation of the school district, where we are now with the things that we're doing, I'd definitely be interested in wanting to hear your thoughts around the evolution of this school district, and ultimately, do you believe or do you feel that we're heading in the right direction? Now, before I open it up for questions, there are a few things that I want to share with each of you that I think is very critical. This year, we passed, the board voted on our strategic plan, and I don't know if you all know, but the board of directors are 9 people that are elected to serve as the superintendent's boss. So yes, I have 9 bosses that I have to report to. And they are community members, they live within the community, they serve different areas within the district. So we, in essence, have what I want to say 6 different districts, and we have 3 at-large board members who kind of represent the entire school district. And so they have simple responsibilities, and I say simple, but it's really not simple. They have to govern, which means their job is to kind of be the overseers and the protector of this school district. They have to set a budget. And so what I do as a superintendent is I work with staff, we look at data, and then we look at what we really need in this school system from both operational, from an operational position, which are the textbooks, the laptops, all of those kind of things, the teachers that we hire, all the way to capital projects. Capital projects would include you all getting new football fields, you all getting a new cafeteria over at Lincoln with a new football field that should be in place by the time you get started with the upcoming school year. And so those are capital projects. Those are the things that we do to fix up our buildings, do roof repairs, all of those kind of things. And so my job is to set a budget and then to make sure that the budget makes sense so that the money that taxpayers are paying, that we're utilizing that money in a very responsible way. And so then the board has to approve it. So that's their second goal. Their third item is to hire a superintendent. Their job is to hire a superintendent, and what you want to do is to be able to pick a superintendent that's going to stay around for some time. Because many of you that are now juniors, I'm your 3rd superintendent. And then what I wonder is how many of you actually know the last 2 people who were superintendents. I think it's very critical that you know who your superintendent is. I didn't know who my superintendent was when I graduated from high school. Heck, I don't even remember my high school principal. And that's kind of a shame, because I think every kid in their high school should know who their assistant principals are and who their principal is, and I think that's very critical. And then the final thing that they do is they evaluate me. So then they evaluate me and they make a determination on should they keep me? Am I hitting the goals? Am I advancing this school district and making it stronger? Or do they need to part ways with me and they need to find somebody else? But ultimately, they are responsible for ultimately my livelihood. My job is to come in here, service the 15,000+ students that we have, the 2,100+ employees that we have, and then to work with this community to try to give you all what you deserve. It's simple for me. So this plan here is our strategic plan. And inside of this plan, we talk about a bullseye, right? And the bullseye is focused on what we need to do for kids. This is what we need to do for students. And so we have 5 goals that, you all should know this. Well, maybe not, but you should know this, especially those of you who are upperclassmen. Success in the early years, we got to educate kids earlier. Do you know that roughly 50 to 60% of our kids who enter into our schools in kindergarten are already behind? So it's because they didn't get any education at the age of 3 or 4. So we want to be able to provide opportunities for more of our 4-year-olds to be educated. And then we want to make sure that all of your needs are met as in terms of the whole child. So socially, academically, and emotionally. And then we want you to grow in all subject areas. I see you back there, I'm almost done. And then we want you to become 21st century critical thinkers and problem solvers. And then most importantly, we need to have you ready for college, career, and or life. That simple. We're not doing these things, and we're not doing our jobs to properly prepare you for when you graduate. So at this time, Ms. Allen, I guess I will open it up for questions, because we only have an hour.
So anyone who wants to ask a question, feel free to go up right here to the microphone, say your name and your school and your grade, and ask Dr. B your question.
Hello, Mr. Bedell. My name is Mackenzie Hammond, and I go to East High School.
Here.
One question that I have for you is, what made you pursue a career in education?
That's so interesting. I had a teacher in the second grade who told me I was dumb, ugly, and wouldn't amount to anything. And in the second grade, I quit school. And the teacher did it because she knew she could get away with it, because there wasn't anybody who was going to come and advocate for me. But fast forward, in the 10th grade, I had a homeroom teacher who told me that, he said, you're gifted. He said, you are academically gifted, and you're throwing it away because you're mad at the world. I don't know what you're going through, but you need to lower your guards, and you need to find somebody to talk to. And I went back to him and told him 2 weeks later everything that I was living through. And he told me, and another teacher, Miss Blaylock, these were 2 history teachers, they said, you're gonna be a teacher one day. I said, nah, I'm going to the NBA. I mean, I don't know if any of you all watched that game last night. It was a pretty brutal accident that happened out there, and it scared the world out of me, but I thought I was going to play in the NBA. And of course, because the teacher had planted a seed in me that I was going to be a teacher, and then I thought about what that second grade teacher did, I said that I was going to do everything in my power to make sure that what happened to me does not happen to other children. And so that's kind of my mission right now. I just want to make sure that we're hiring people that genuinely care, they understand who you are, they know you, and they understand how you show up. Because listen, each of us are going through some things in here. And it's just that simple. Each of us are experiencing different struggles. And how do we support each other in that? And a lot of times, many of us, we come to school because we look for that support from adults. The schools are, part of our job is to provide that. But that's why I'm in education. You're welcome.
My name is Shandra Greer, and I go to Northeast. So I was recently at Lincoln, and you came and spoke to us about basically your background, and what advice would you give to people who are going through similar things that you did?
This is probably the easiest advice that I can give you, is to do what Mr. Barrett told me to do. Mr. Barrett said, you find somebody to talk to. Part of the reason why I started this mentoring program, and we did our launch probably 2 weeks ago, where we really want to pair our kids with some caring adult advocates that can then allow for you to be able to offload on them. So we've trained a ton of people, and there's a lot of people out there who are looking for matches, in particular kids like you that, just the struggle is real. And then how do we talk you through that? I mean, I know there are 2 kids that I'm connecting with, and this is the qualifier for those 2 kids. You need to have been dealt a real nasty hand in life. Like, it's just bad. I mean, you don't know whether you coming home to lights on or off, but you also have to love sports, right? Because I can connect with you through sports because I love sports. And then I can use sports as a leverage then to get into your personal life around, hey man, I lived through the exact same things. Let me tell you what I did to navigate through that. And there may be people out there that didn't live through what I lived through, but they want to mentor, and they may have an interest in someone that, may have not been dealt a bad hand in life, may love sports, may want to go into law, but we tried to design this mentoring program where it can be customized so that you all can be paired with somebody that's going to have your back. And that makes a difference. And so if you're looking for a mentor, at the end of the day, at the end of this, leave your information with either Dr. Cordova or Miss Allen. She's somewhere in here. And we will make sure we get that to the appropriate people and try to get you paired up with someone, okay? But the best thing you can do is talk to someone. That's what I did. And once I talked to him, when I came back 2 weeks later and told him, I started making the honor roll. I didn't make the honor roll until halfway through my 10th grade year. Because he told me that I was smart. Nobody had really done that before. And I didn't look back after that, as you all can see.
So when, just a quick announcement, when you're using the microphones, please speak directly and clearly into the microphone. Okay. Don't be shy. So.
Hey, my name is Justin Bilombele, and I'm an East High School student. I'm a senior. I just wanted to ask you a question, because like, based on your life, it looks like that one biggest challenge you had to overcome was yourself. You had to overcome yourself and have a different mentality of success and to achieve greatness. Can I ask you something about what is it that you need, or what is it that you have to overcome? What is the biggest obstacle beside yourself, besides self-esteem, that you have to do in life? For me, like if you try something and you do it progressively, but you don't achieve that, even though you don't give up, it's like what is the thing you have to do to go around that?
Well, one of the things I will share with you is we talk about grit and having grit, but we also talk about failure. And grit is just basically grinding it out, continuously working at it. And then understanding failure is a part of growth. I think sometimes people develop a fixed mindset and a can't-do mentality because they've fallen multiple times. You know, and I remember that quote from Michael Jordan, who just talks about how many shots he missed over and over and over, how many game-winning attempts that he had. He missed far more opportunities to win a game than he did making the shot. But what he did was he continuously found a way to sharpen his craft, but he also embraced that failure. He allowed for that to just become a motivator. And so one of the things I try to tell people is that there's a lot of people out here that will tell you what you can't do. You know, and I think that you have to develop a growth mindset. There's a lot of kids that don't think that they're smart. Like, everybody has a gift in them. And it's, you know, once again, you cannot allow for what everybody else says and how they try to paint a picture of you because of where you come from or how you look or your accent or, you know, what they perceive as your inability to be successful in a certain area. No, we're not going to be great in everything. Listen, I wanted to play in the NBA. I got invited to 5 NBA pro camps, folks. I didn't get that phone call to advance. I think it was probably one of the most depressing times in my life. But I said I had a bold plan, and then I had a realistic plan. And my realistic plan was, you know what? I am going to go into teaching, and I'm going to be a value add to kids. I never thought that goal of just going in to be a teacher, starting off as a substitute teacher, because that's what I did, would land me into the superintendency to run a full-blown district. So set a realistic goal and then go after it. And don't let anybody get in the way of that.
Hi, my name is Patience Zulu. I'm from Lincoln, and I'm a junior. And I don't believe our responsibility should rest on the leader. I feel like people should pick up some of it. So what can we do as students to help you bring up the district?
I think that's just probably the great question. So let me tell you where you all can help us. So I need a lot of help with social media. Social media is killing us. It is killing school districts around the country. The bullying that's taking place over social media has resulted in, and you've heard in some other school districts where kids are committing suicide. It's a form of bullying. I mean, it's just bullying, right? And so we use that because it's the easiest thing that we can do to attack people instead of using it in a very proactive way. And so to me, I need help with that. The other thing I need help with is that you all gotta spread the word around what this district is doing for you. And what I mean by that is, if you only speak in negative ways about your school district, that's the perception that people will continue to have. I think we've come in this past year, and we've done a lot to change the narrative. We haven't been on the news for a bunch of negative stories. We got one a couple of days ago that we're dealing with, but you know where that stems from? Social media. Social media. But at the end of the day, if we go around and we speak words of positivity, words of affirmation to each other, we don't pick on each other because of, you know, who we are, where we come from, what we don't have. You know, I was picked on a lot because I didn't have nice shoes. And I told you all the story about the upside down Jordan, the ball down at the bottom. I won't ever forget that. It was hard. And so the way that kids are coping with that kind of stuff now is that they're not even laughing it off and trying to overcome it. They're just conducting bodily harm to themselves, right? They're quitting, they're giving up, they're committing suicide. And there's other ways that we have to be able to cope. But it takes you all to come together and say, we're gonna turn this around. It isn't cool to pick on people, to bully. It isn't cool to go and talk about people on social media, right? Let's change it. But we can't do it as administrators. Believe it or not, you all have a lot more power than we do. Trust me when I tell you that. So use it, but use it for good. Use it for good.
Hello, my name is Huda Al-Khatib. I am a East High School student. I have a question. Did you have a person who tried to put you down and tell you you will not be successful in your life? And how did you challenge him and be like as you want now? If not, what do you will tell students who have this person to do?
Yeah, so absolutely. I've had quite a few people tell me what I couldn't do. And sometimes just because of the skin of my color. They automatically see me as a African American male, and that's trouble. That's immediate trouble. People already have this low expectation of what they think I can or cannot do. And it's the way that things play out in the media. You know, I mean, I remember when I came here last year, or in 2016, when I first received the job, and I was going to the airport, and there was an article. And the article was around a Google search. And what the Google search did was it talked about looking at 3 happy black kids versus 3 happy white kids, right? And the Google search pulled up 3 white kids that had on nice sweaters, soccer balls, and then the 3 black kids were mugshots. That's what pulled up. And they did a story on that. So the way that people see you automatically can hurt you. And so for me, I was fortunate. And just like I shared with this young lady, I just had a bunch of positive adults that came into my life at different times that were there for me. They helped me. I mean, a guy taught me how to drive. I just know his first name, Kiefer. I don't know where he is, but if I hit the lotto and win a lot of money, I can tell you right now, I will find Kiefer and I will bless him, because he didn't have to teach me how to drive. But it was this whole, for me, people who came in my life and helped me to navigate through some of the negativity that I was experiencing. And so the way that I share with you is the same. Right? Like, people can pick on you, people can tell you what you can't do, but if you have a high level of self-efficacy, and self-efficacy is, no matter what people tell me, I know what I can do. I know where my abilities and my strength lie, and I'm going to do it. And remember this, students, your 4 years in high school, they go fast. If you're in middle school, those 2 years fly by. You will be entering into the real world before you know it. And so at the end of the day, fight now. Set your foundation right now. And then when you graduate, you'll be ready for anybody. Anybody, I promise you. I didn't go to an Ivy League university, but I competed against people that went to Ivy League universities for these kind of positions. And that makes a difference, but what makes a difference is the individual. If I allow people to say, oh, you didn't go to an Ivy League university or a Tier 1 university, you shouldn't be applying for these jobs, then I'm buying into what the narrative that people have created for me. Create your own narrative.
My name is Connor Stanley, and I'm from the Foreign Language Academy. And I'm just wondering what you saw in your school that has improved over the years, and what you're trying to do to fix schools as well.
Well, I will tell you, for me, and I'll go back to my experience as a principal, as a high school principal. I took over a school that was academically unacceptable. It was low performing, it was a dropout factory. It was named Booker T. Washington High School. And the acronym that people had created for the school was Bums, Thugs, and Winos. That's what they had called the school. And I came into that school and I said, the days of people referring to this school in that manner is over. And what I did was I charged the students up. I told the students, are you okay with people talking about the school that you're going to graduate from like this? And like, we're one family. This is what I tell people. I tweeted out the other day. Central High School, and I know Southeast, Northeast, these schools are all rivals in different sports. But I saw something that was beautiful. I saw Central High School band come and play when we did the dedication for the field over here at Northeast, because Northeast doesn't have a band. But I also saw last week, Southeast high schools came to Central High School to support them and merge together as one band when they competed against Van Horn High School. What I'm trying to create is a family. Like, we're gonna compete against each other, but at the end of the day, we're all one KCPS. And what I want us to be able to do is to be rivals, but when it's time for us to come together for the greater good of the school system, let's make that happen. That's how you transform a school district. You give people a sense of pride and excitement about being a part of something that's bigger than themselves. And that's what I did at my high school. And in 3 years, we turned that high school completely around. Completely around. And it was that the kids bought into it. And then the adults bought into it. But the key is they knew that I cared. They knew that I cared. And I'm not just here just to try to get to the next big gig. I'm actually here because I want to be here to help serve all of you. But how do I get to stay around? Is by you all doing your part. Step up and help me. Let's beat this national average of a superintendent being in an urban school district only 3 years and 2 months. Let's beat that. And we can beat that by us all stepping up and doing what we need to do. Come to school every day.
Hello, Superintendent,
Dr. Bedell. Does there need to be an extension of the studies of African American and Latino history?
I would say absolutely. I mean, we serve a diverse population. And one of the things that we're looking at is our African-centered college preparatory program. I can tell you right now, we have to revamp that over at Southeast. So it's a school within a school model. It's a signature school, but we want to make sure that those pathways mean something. Like, I'm not interested in you all taking standalone electives. In this case, you may have to take standalone electives, but I want you all to graduate out of here with a completer. And it may not, it's not going to happen with this current class, but the kids who are in the 7th grade right now, that group of kids are the group that we're working that by the time they get to high school, we have created these pathways that when they graduate from high school, they have options. They have options in terms of being able to go into the workforce because they have a completer, and a completer is that you've taken a sequence of courses that now give you some type of endorsement, certification, and then they can also, if they want to go to college, they can go. That was the thing that was, fortunate for me. I was able to do that, and I was actually able to go to college and major in African studies at Fisk University. But I had that option. I could have gone and worked at Kodak doing electrical construction because I went to a vocational ed high school. So the point that I'm making to you is yes, we have a very diverse population. If you've seen any of my letters, any of the resolutions that our board has adopted, I'm probably one of the most vocal individuals around making sure that the diversity in this school district is respected, and that we're not going to do anything to let anybody harm you because of where you come from and who you are. That's not happening under my leadership. So, absolutely.
Hello, my name is Marcy, and I'm a student here at East High School. First of all, I'll say thank you for the field that our field is being built. I'm so happy. I can't wait for the soccer season to start. I'm so grateful. But my question is that, according to your bio, like your history back then, do you ever look back to the people who helped you out and like show gratitude to them, to show like you're grateful? And if it's so, how do you do that?
Oh, wow. So the ones that I'm able to make contact with, I feel like that's just an excellent question. I do. I mean, oftentimes if I'm speaking somewhere, I tell people that I didn't get here alone. I didn't get to this position by myself. The people that did a lot for me, I'm actually flying them in to stay at my house for the holidays. And so I bought them round trip tickets and paid for their parking, and they're going to come here and spend Christmas with my family. And these are people that I call mom and dad. They're my guardians. But these were people who didn't have to help me out. They helped me with college applications. They did a lot of those things that they just didn't have to do. And then even when I was in college, they would fly me they would drive me to Fisk University, which was a 12-hour drive from Rochester, New York, and then they would fly us back. And so during the holidays. So yeah, absolutely. I think at the end of the day, then the way you pay those kind of people back is then you do the same thing for others. And that's what my wife and I have really said that we were going to do. We were going to use some of the blessings that we have in terms of finances to bless others the same way that I was blessed.
Excuse me. What about the people who didn't help you, the people who let you down? And one more question now. What is the most effective way to teach a student? Because one of my teachers, Mr. Lawrence, used the things that the student likes and use that to get the student to learn effectively. And what I want to ask you, what is the most effective way, the most way you can tell the teachers to teach the student effectively?
All right, so yeah, there were people who didn't help me, and of course, I regret that some of the people that should have been the closest to me weren't there for me, and I forgive them regarding that, you move forward. I mean, at the end of the day, you move forward and you still talk to them, you still support them in any way that you can. But what I talk about is that every kid in here has a gift. And part of being a great teacher is to figure out where that gift is, where does that gift lie within you. How do you figure out a kid's gift? Well, you gotta talk to them. You gotta then make sure that when you're designing your lessons, that you're doing it in a culturally relevant way, a culturally responsive way, so that you're not just teaching one way from your own lens based on how you live life, right? Because when I was a teacher, if I just taught lessons based on my singular experiences, then there's no way I'm gonna be able to figure out what kids are good at. And some kids are better at not sitting in a desk. I mean, one of the things I tell people is, why aren't we having 21st century classrooms? Why aren't we having future-ready classrooms? Why do you have to sit down in rows of desks and listen to a teacher lecture to you all day? That's not the world you're gonna be entering into. It's not. And when many of you, if you go to college, that's generally, you can get your lesson in many different ways where you may not even have to go to class. So I think what we're trying to do now is create an environment that can, in some cases, remove brick and mortar. Like the only time you go to school is 7:20 to 2:20. Some of you have to help your family meet ends. I have kids who can't come to school from 7:20 to 2:20. So why aren't we designing options for those kids to come in perhaps from 4 until 9 or 10, so that they can still get their high school diplomas and be able to help their family? And so it's a matter of us getting to know you and talking to you, and then doing activities that help us to see how this kid learns best, and then making sure that you design components of that, and you're not going to get it every single day, but that you're designing components of those elements within your lesson plans that will keep kids engaged and hooked. But that's through time of getting to know a kid.
So I know like you recently started a mentoring program with high school students, mentoring middle school students. But I know it's kind of too late because you're like getting to seniors. But is there any way you can get like some high school students get mentors? Because I know a lot of students, I know these, like a couple of them I talked to, they're having like problem stuff at home, and that's affecting them from home to school. I know attendance is like a really big thing. And then like the 90-90 program or thing, like that's really big. So is there any way we can try to get mentors or people up there? Or
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the kid I mentor is a senior. You know, for me, every year, for the most part, I've mentored seniors. I try to help those seniors who are struggling to get through. And I can tell you, my record was broken my last year in Baltimore County when I had one kid, and no matter everything that I tried to do, and all he needed to do was come to school the last 3 months, he would have graduated. So I had my first kid out of all of the years that I mentored these seniors who didn't graduate. And I pride myself on doing everything in my power to get these kids across the stage. So the mentoring program doesn't just start with elementary or middle. I mean, there's actually high school kids too that are assigned mentors. So that's not a problem. I mean, and like I said, if you ask this question, how can you all help us? You know how you can help? You can help by doing what you just did. You know what, Dr. Bedell? I know 2 or 3 other kids who really need a mentor. And they're not coming to school, and I'm not going to put their business out in the street to you. Here's what I can do, give you their names, and then you guys can reach out to them. That's how you all can help us too. Help us, because you all talk to each other. I mean, you don't want anybody to lose out on a bright future because you knew that, and then you didn't share it with an adult who could then try to intervene. Because that's, you know, ultimately, that's part of this family unit that I'm trying to create. Like, we're not going to allow anybody to fail. Like, that's the goal. I shoot for 100% graduation rate. Even though no urban school district, large urban school district in this country has a 100% graduation rate, it doesn't mean that we don't strive towards getting there. That's my goal. You guys can help me with that.
Hi, my name is Cardi Ann. I go to Lincoln College Prep Academy. And I can't really vouch for like every school in the district, but so far you guys are doing really good with our administration. They're doing good with communicating to our teachers and letting our teachers communicate well with us. And also, since my sophomore year, we've been having a new principal every year. But it's okay because this year we do have a well principal who's been everything that she's been promising us. She's been sticking through and following through with it. So I do appreciate that. And then also, you really like sports a lot, and I also play a sport, but like, it's like we need more resources for our sports. It's like schools even within the Kansas City area, like just yesterday at the soccer game, they came to school with they came to the game with a whole warm-up suit, like stuff like that. Like, we just don't have the resources for that.
Okay, and we do. I can tell you, I will get with Dr. Sanders, who's our athletic director, but one of the things I will tell you is after coming here last year and going and watching the athletic events, I personally went into our budget and spent $146,000 on new uniforms. Some of those uniforms, because it was such a large order, some of them are on back order, like it's going to take time, but I could tell you over time, our kids in our school district will have new uniforms. And if that's not happening, then I need to know. Because to me, part of being competitive you need to look good too. And I think that changes something. If you're not running around in, you know, raggedy uniforms, I mean, that impacts, you know, people's pride. So what I would tell you is I'm huge on that, and I think because of all of the new amenities that our district has with the new fields and the new gyms, we actually have a huge increase in our fall enrollment in extracurricular activities. So that works well for us because now we're keeping more kids off the streets. We're keeping them involved in something that's very productive, and then it gives them a sense of connection to their school. And I know at your school, you know, people take a lot of that stuff very seriously. I've been to your homecoming football game, and it was unbelievable the amount of people who showed up. And I know I went over to Northeast High School's homecoming, and I probably saw more adults in there than I did kids, but there's a lot of pride in this district that's being restored.
And then also it's like, since my freshman year with the varsity letters and also like a certificate of recognition, it's like our old athletic director within our school like had the excuse that there wasn't enough money in the budget and he used the rest of the money on the football players varsity letters. So it's like the rest of us didn't get varsity letters and like barely recognized for the past few years.
Well, I'll tell you, I'm looking at your assistant principal because they need to handle that. That's an equity issue. He said it's handled. Okay? Yes. Look, I have 2 daughters. I don't play all of that kind of stuff.
My last and final question for you. Was President Trump right for his comments on the kneeling during the pledge? I forgot.
You really gonna put me on the spot like that? I mean, I'm one of those people where if you don't want to hear the truth, don't ask me the question, right? So I will sit here and tell you, we talk about narrative, and I will be very clear with you. They're kneeling for a reason. They're kneeling because their focus is on the injustices that are taking place, and that's really what that was about. Right? To change the narrative and to say that you're disrespecting soldiers, you know, because you don't like the fact that these gentlemen are kneeling because they are trying to, you know, really have a voice out here around the change that needs to take place in this country. And when we talk about, let's just put it out there, it's around race. It's you know, and it's a big deal here in Kansas City. If you read articles, you know, Kansas City is one of the most racially divided cities in the United States, like in the top 5. You got a divider line here, east of truth and west of truth. And east of truth basically dictates by your zip code, they can project what your outcomes are going to be in life. Now, I come from nothing. And at the end of the day, I've seen so many of the people that I grew up with fall victims to this perception that people have painted on you because of a zip code. Like no, we're going to change that, but we're going to make sure that we stay focused on the reason why people kneel. And I've said in the newspaper article, you know, you express your differences, and everybody has that freedom of expression to do it the way that you need to do it. We were at a game, at the Northeast game, and a student from Southeast took a knee, and somebody told him to stand up. And I didn't know who it was, and I said, I was wondering who said that, because you don't have the right to tell somebody whether they can take a knee or not even the president. That's our right. And so, you know, as long as they're not doing anything to disrespect the flag, they're not burning it and tearing it up or doing anything like that. So then we try to change the narrative, and we try to make it seem like, oh, you're disrespecting the soldiers. Because that's what the narrative, that's what people tried to change it to the president. And I think the same applies for our school district, right? We can talk about the things that we believe aren't fair in this city, and when you're right and you use data to prove that you're right, people will try to deflect and they'll try to change the narrative. But no, we're not going to do that. I told people this district will be a force to be reckoned with over the next several years because of people like you all in here. I promise you. And these people that we have here that's working for you, that's tired of people trying to create a narrative about what this district is or what it isn't. But we're going to change all of that.
I'm Juan Brown from Foreign Language Academy, and I would like to ask, I have some friends that I've known for quite a while, and they say that they want to go to my school, but they're not within like the district limits to be able to get into some of the schools. Is there any way that we could actually like expand those limits?
Well, no, the only way you would be able to expand is if it's money, but there's also boundaries that exist where our district cuts off at a certain point. So, you have to understand, we're in the inner city. We're surrounded by 14 other public school districts. And so you have districts like Hickman Mills, you have districts like Independence, you have districts like Center, North Kansas City. There's a bunch of those different districts that the boundaries basically at that point won't allow for kids to enter into our school district or our kids to enter into those schools. If kids want to attend our schools because of unique programs that we have, then it is a tuition that those families would have to pay, just as if you were going to a private school, or if you all decided you wanted to live in this district but you wanted to go attend another school, then your parents would have to pay tuition for those schools that are public schools outside of our boundaries.
One from my problem here in school, I have 3 classes. I can't be focused because some students make class very crazy, and the teacher try many ways to stop them, but they never work. What we can do as students to stop this and help teacher?
Yeah, I think I've experienced this same issue too as a teacher, but also as a principal. And part of what we need to do is figure out a way to meet with those couple of kids. And one of the things we're doing this upcoming year is we're going to teach our principals around master scheduling. They're going to get master scheduling training next month. So that's the schedule that we build so you all can take your classes. One of the things we want to build in there is an advisory period or an intervention period. So one of the things I did when I had those same type of issues with kids was every Tuesday we had an advocacy period. And I would take those kids from 10:05 to 10:50 and we put them in some type of support, anger management, whether it's mentoring, whether it's helping to determine the root cause for why they're acting out. I mean, most people don't want to act out just because that's the cool thing to do. Believe it or not, kids tend to act out when they can't read, when they can't do arithmetic, and they find other ways to be good at other things that then hurt the rest of us. And so ultimately what we have to be able to do is, with our administration, our assistant principals, pull these kids, and we got to sit down and give them the support that they need. Some kids act out because of neglect and abuse that they're experiencing outside of the schoolhouse, and they don't know how to cope with it. Some kids, it's because they have to be adults at a much younger age than they need to be, right? And then they're coming to school and they finally get to be a kid, and then, I'm cutting loose. But I tell people that kids don't act out just because it's the cool thing to do. Obviously, there's some root causes there that cause that. And then ultimately, yeah, as students, and I've shared this last year, you can't allow for 2 or 3 kids to hold the entire class under hostage. And that's where you have to make demands to the building principal that something be done.
My name is Louis Bolton from Lincoln Prep. And so, some kids with like ADHD, things like that, mental problems, they can be like unfairly judged based on the standards of other kids in the class. So how would you approach that?
Yeah, I think you hit it on the head. One of the things that we've done, and Dr. Cordova has a department that really focuses on us becoming a trauma-informed school district, that we have a true pulse on mental health of our kids. We form partnerships with Truman Medical Center. We've actually hired some people from Truman Medical Center. And what we have to be able to do now is provide the professional development to our teachers around how do you recognize and when a kid has ADD or ADHD, or a kid has experienced some type of trauma. I think at this point, a lot of our adults don't know how to recognize that. And so we just started this last year. We rolled out a 3-year plan that will be designed to help our teachers better support our kids that show up with some of those variables. I can tell you right now, it's hard for me to sit here this long. I mean, I can tell you, I wasn't diagnosed, but I know I'm ADD, ADHD, ADHD. I know that, right? And so for me, I recognize that what best serves me is that when I'm moving around, when I'm up and about, if you're telling me I gotta sit down for 50 straight minutes, that's kind of a problem. And I'm just serious about that. So we have to recognize that in our kids, but that requires some training. And I don't think that our college preparatory programs have done a good enough job of training us in that area. Because I know I wasn't trained in that area when I went through my teacher prep program. I received a lot of that training long after I had become a teacher.
My name is Adnos. I'm an 8th grader from Lincoln Prep. And what are your upcoming goals for the school year?
Well, ultimately for me, it's to get this strategic plan implemented. It's to provide the support to our principals. We want our principals to be instructional leaders. There's a difference between managerial leadership and instructional leadership. Managerial is get into your classes on time, get in the cafeteria, sit down, stop running in the hallway, stop acting out. We have to work with this next time. Can't do a silent bell? Okay, that's fine. And this is all live too. This is a live experience. All right, so what I was saying was that as far as my goals are concerned, and then I need to make sure that my principals really understand how to go in and help teachers become better. That, we don't want a lot of turnover. Somebody said, this is my 3rd year and now I got a 3rd different principal. We're trying to stop that. But the only way that we can stop that is by equipping our people properly with the proper training on what you can and cannot do as a principal. How do you support your teachers? And that we have a strong instructional focus, a framework for how we're going to educate every single one of you. Because part of our issue is you don't want to be misaligned. So you don't want to have arrows all over the place. And then it trickles down to the teachers, giving our teachers the professional development that they deserve, and making sure that they are properly educated to give you what you need, and then having these conversations like this, talking to you about how can we do a better job of making you all well-rounded kids. You got to be more than just a scholar. You got to get involved in extracurricular activities, join robotics, get involved in the chess club, do sports, create some type of social organizational club within your school that you can get a teacher to sponsor. That helps you to become well-rounded, and it makes your application for whatever you decide to do when you graduate that much more competitive. So for me, that's the big thing for me. Really creating well-rounded kids, but it's through the implementation of this strategic plan. Come on, get in line.
I got another question, and I was trying to ask about curriculums. Like most students can be good in class, but go with the ACT, maybe they have a bad day and take it wrong from EOC. And some students, they may be talented on the sport and other stuff, and maybe EOC or ACT stopping them from being sportsmen, playing soccer or something like that. Isn't ACT or EOC in this curriculum, are the curriculum giving label to the students?
Well, I will tell you, there's a lot of argument out there about assessments, and like testing shouldn't just be the only primary indicator of how a kid performs, right? There are some other things that we are looking at in terms of looking at tasks. And one of the things we're doing now is we're working with the state, because the state's getting ready to transfer from the MSIP 5 to MSIP 6, which is the Missouri State Assessment Improvement Program. And so we are, as superintendents, we're having these conversations with the commissioner about, how do we measure value-added growth in a different way other than just an assessment? Because I know some people who are phenomenal at passing tests, but are some of the worst practitioners in the world. And I know some people who aren't, good at taking tests, but could go in front of anybody and just do a phenomenal job in practice. And so, I think for us, our job is to make sure that as we build the curriculum, that we are very tightly aligned with the state standards, that we're focusing on giving you rigor at a much earlier age. And then by the time you get into high school and you're having to take your ACT or your SAT or your EOCs, we prepared you from kindergarten, really from pre-K, all the way up to you really being prepared to be able to handle the rigors of the state assessment. I will tell everybody, our state assessment is a very competitive and it's a very tough state assessment. It's probably one of the top 5 in the United States. But the state has recognized that they're going to look at doing something different with this new round of assessments that will be coming out in 2 years or so.
Okay, so I know I'm a senior, so it's not as relevant to me, but for everyone else at Lincoln, there's a lot of students in our building, and there's been for years the rumor that the middle school is opening back up. So is it going to open back up, or? You're putting me on the spot. So that is the plan. We are actually going to take it. We're going to do a presentation on October 25th to the board as to why we should open up Lincoln Middle. There are a lot of kids that we're turning around. Lincoln High School is at 102% capacity, and I can tell you that there are a lot of kids that I personally have spoken to that didn't even apply because they didn't think they would have a chance to get in because of a waiting list. If we do that, then we free up about 300 seats at that high school. So now you would have true 9th through 12th grade at the high school building, and then looking at moving 6th, 7th, and 8th into the middle school across the street. Now that also will pick up about 250 more kids at that middle school. So we are taking that to the board on the 25th for a presentation, and then the Board of Education will vote on November 1st as to whether or not we move forward with making plans to open up that school in 2019.
Okay, so you said, that you wonder why classes aren't set up for the 21st century. What would a class in the 21st century be like or look like?
So if you think about right now, our classes have desks in there. So when I was a high school principal in 2009, going into 2010, we created these 21st century classrooms. What did that look like? That meant we had conference tables, we had some couches, we had bean bags, we had swivel stools, we had the technology that the kids could really interface within the classroom. What it did was it forced kids to run the class, to get the class on time, because they had preferences in certain areas within the room that they wanted to sit in. But it also required that the teacher had to give up a little bit of power. And it's very hard for high school teachers to do. I'm just telling you, like we kind of set in our way, and I gotta make sure everything's organized. But in order for you to run a 21st century or a future-ready classroom, you definitely have to be a facilitator, which means that you gotta let kids have a little bit more autonomy in their own learning, and you gotta trust that the kids are gonna be responsible with those types of freedoms. So you have to set that tone really over the first 2 to 4 weeks of the school year on how we're going to operate, and that we're teaching you how to be young adults. When you go to Google and you go to Facebook and some of these places, you look at how they work. They're in jeans and t-shirts. They make a great salary, but their environment is a future-ready environment, right? It's designed for them to be comfortable so they can maximize their full potential in creating the products that we all get to enjoy today. And so what if we did that in our schools? Like, what if we took our classrooms and created those type of learning environments that really prepare you for what you're going to be walking into when you graduate? Not this chalkboard era way of how we conduct teaching and learning. To me, it's kind of played out. It's that simple.
Hi, my name is Sophia Trim. I'm from Northeast. I'm a junior. My question is, how can we media students and administrator help for kids trying to come up, volunteer fail, even being bullied by it.
Yeah, so what I would say is, and I've talked to my staff about bullying, and I'm trying to get like an anti-bullying campaign going in our school district. Is that what you said, bullying?
Yes.
Yeah, so we're trying to get an anti-bullying campaign started in our school district, and maybe we're starting off with 1 week, but eventually moving it to a month. And so we're in the planning phases of trying to do that, where we could then give kids the space that they need to feel comfortable that they can talk about it, they can report it, and they don't have to worry about any type of retaliation. We do have some structures in place on how you can report, and I'll probably have you talk to Dr. Cordova. Dr. Cordova can talk to you about that before he leaves, around some ways that we do have some safeguards in place so that we can intervene and help when those types of things are happening.
Okay, like I mentioned before, I was coming from Lincoln. And the reason because I heard like about a program my dad was telling me about where you go to manual, which is a thing called VOTEC, and like do like a career like what you want to do. And I understand that Lincoln's a college prep school, so they're prepping for college. So like I understand like I had to leave to become something I actually wanted to do. But I really don't think they like make it big in schools and let like students know about it. I'm really not sure because like I said, I'm coming from Lincoln to another school, so I really don't know how to do things. And I just feel like it gives minorities the opportunity not to have to work as hard as they have to do in order to come.
So you're talking about like the CTE programs that we have at Manual Tech,
Yes.
and being able to go there and being able to get some type of endorsement. And you're saying it's not being promoted or advertised?
I'm saying like I'm not sure. I know at Northeast like it's like, oh, like I know a girl, she wanted to do it, but she's like, oh, I never really heard about that, blah blah blah, like this and that. But I know because I'm in the EMT class, and another student who goes to sales, she was like, oh yeah, I heard about this at the last minute, blah blah blah. Like she came like 2 weeks.
Well, let me tell you, this is great. So what we have created in central office is what we call project teams. And so these project teams are going to be designed to help us to do a better job of not letting any of these balls that we juggle fall and hit the ground. This is simply about marketing. And so I have several people in here that work directly within our marketing department that's hearing this right now. And we also hired a director over career technology education this year, which we didn't have in place last year. So now we have somebody that's going to be able to get out and grow this program and promote it in a way that we weren't able to do in the past. I think you are 100% valid with your statements around people finding out at the last minute or not knowing. All of that's getting ready to change because we've done some redesigning in our organizational structure in central office. How many minutes we have?
0.
2 minutes, so these are the last 2 questions, okay.
Hello?
Hi.
My name is William Gass. I'm from Northeast freshman. Did you have any of your friends that like drag you down? Like they'll like hold you back from reaching the goals? And you had to change friends?
Yes, I had a lot of them. Let me just be very clear with you. I'm not perfect. I'll sit up here and tell you all I'm not perfect. I made a lot of mistakes in high school. Made a lot of mistakes. Running with the wrong crowd. And it almost cost me my high school career because I became ineligible to play basketball in my 10th grade year because I wasn't going to English class. And that's when Mr. Berry came in when he saw my progress report and he told me, you said you gifted it, you throwing it away. And so at that point, I had to make a decision. First of all, I didn't like the feeling of missing 6 games, and I was the leading scorer on the basketball team. And I actually cried when I became ineligible because I'm missing 6 games. I had to wait until the progress reports came out at the midterm part of that second grading, that third grading cycle before I was eligible again. And at that point, I never became ineligible again, but I had to separate myself too. And it's hard to do, but it's the right thing to do.
My name is Connor Stanley from the foreign language, and I was just wondering, what do you plan to see in the years to come? Like, what do you plan to see change in the school district?
I think it's simple, that you have people who want to be here because they genuinely care for you all, and they're not here to collect a paycheck. That's number one. Number two, that you see a school system that has right now roughly 14,400 kids, that in 4 or 5 years from now, that district is back up to 20,000 kids because people have a different level of belief in what we're doing, and that this school district is a fully accredited school district. It's provisionally accredited now. So you have 3 levels of ratings. You can be unaccredited, provisionally accredited, and fully accredited. My goal is to get us to be fully accredited. The only way we're going to become fully accredited is if our kids perform better on those state assessments. That's the area. But that's the reason why we have this strong focus in our strategic plan around giving our teachers the proper training, making sure that the curriculum makes sense, and making sure that our principals are being trained to be instructional leaders. And if we do those things, like I said, it just opens up the door for us to give you all a rich high school experience, because right now I got high schools that only have 500 kids. It's not a lot you can offer. You have the bare bones of resources. But if we turn these high schools into 1,000, 1,200 high school student high schools, you can get a rich experience. There's a lot you can do. So that's the plan, sir. All right.